Students, today we will take on 18 FT 504 quality assurance in garment production. We will talk about Unit 2 quality standards, systems and inspection agencies. In the earlier lesson of the same unit, we talked about different US and European standards of quality. And also in the earlier class, we talked about different quality management systems, that is ISO 9001, ISO 14000 series, then OSHA's 18000 series. All these systems are there and they really address the quality. Quality standards, it may be environmental quality standard or it is a quality management standard. Let us see today a new lesson, that is lesson 3, which talks about REACH and CPS standards. These two standards again are associated with the health and safety issues as well as the environmental problems. How to really put our environment in the top and not to pollute it by using certain harmful chemicals. So those things are there in these type of standards. So that's why they are called the quality standards, which relates to the health, safety and environmental issues of garment. Student, let us start now with this lesson 3, REACH and CPS standard. Now, what is REACH? It is not a normal meaning. There is some inherent regulation associated with this REACH regulation. This has been evolved by European Chemical Agency, or in short we call it as ECHA. They only really are the inventors of REACH. REACH is a very common terminology nowadays from the garment point of view. REACH regulation, interestingly, can be applied not only in the textile and apparel industry but different other industries also, such as leather industry, any engineering industry if you take it into account, electrical industry. So wherever the harmful chemicals or the use of chemicals are there, the REACH regulation will be applied to it. Now students, you may ask, what is the importance of these regulations? Okay. Whether any commercial value is there of this kind of regulations, or it is just for export oriented material. If we really want to export, then this regulation is important for us. And what is there in that regulation? What are the important clauses are available in these regulations, and what does it mean? Those things we will see in the REACH regulation. Now let us see, students, what do we mean by the REACH? REACH regulation has been evolved by ECHA, as I already told, that human health and the environment, okay, the risk imposed by different chemicals. So that is taken care by this regulation. When I am talking about the health, health is for everybody. It is human being, it is also for animal health and also for environmental. Those all aspects are associated with the REACH regulations. What REACH does? It gives the protection. How? Protection is given in the form of banning some chemicals or restriction of using such chemicals in different processes and products. Students, you may ask if any such kind of chemicals which are there in the REACH regulation, if it is there in the garment or any other product, what will happen? It has direct effect not only for the human health and the environment, but also the commercial utility of this REACH regulation is there. What is that commercial regulations? You see that any country nowadays, especially the European country, if you want to export any goods, there the buyers will insist upon the product should be compliant with the REACH regulation. What do we mean by that? That means in the product, the chemicals which are listed in the REACH regulation should not be there. Let us see, students, what do we mean by REACH and what this abbreviation of REACH is. REACH stands for registration. What is registered? Registration of chemicals. Evaluation. What do we evaluate? We evaluate the restricted substances or harmful substances, dangerous substances, chemicals, harmful substances, etc. Then come authorization. Authorization in the means that some of the chemicals which are really harmful for human health and for the environment, that is authorized, and those chemicals or those substances should not be used in the production process. That is the authorization in the REACH regulation. And finally, the restriction of chemicals. Certain list is available in the REACH regulation. In that list, chemicals which are harmful for human being or has been reported by different agencies that yes, this may pose some problem in future, or some chemicals which are really harmful for the environmental aspects. So all these things, there will be restriction of using such chemicals. That's why when we talk about the REACH regulation, we talk about registration of chemicals, evaluation of chemicals and substances, authorization of chemicals, and the restriction of chemicals. In today's export market, without complying with the REACH regulation, apparel export cannot be possible in different countries. So that is the importance of REACH and its related regulations. There are plenty of clauses which are available in the REACH, but in our practical purpose, we will use some important clauses which is really helpful to understand REACH. Let us see now what are those clauses and what are those importance, and the REACH regulation how is helpful for the business. Students, can you recognize what is this? This is nothing but some experimental part on the animals. I do not know whether you know about certain regulations. Now, as per those regulations, nowadays, any kind of testing on animals are banned, or you should not use certain kind of skins, fur or any other thing which are there on the surface of the animals, that also should not be used. A lot of restrictions have been put onto it. So what has been adopted in this regulation? Hazard assessment of substances. We have to really assess what are the hazards associated with a material. Like a phthalate, if you want to do the hazard assessment, you can find that lot of hazards which are health hazards are associated with this. As I already discussed, different health hazards are there with this phthalate. Now this is not the end. Suppose a garment which is there with phthalate printing, if you throw out this garment also after its useful life, it will go into the soil, and from that soil again there will be leaching out of phthalate, and again it causes problem to the environment in the form of soil. So that is the hazard assessment of substances. When you are taking the hazard assessment starting from the beginning of its raw material to different manufacturing stages, and then final use of the material, and after the effective use of this material, when it goes into different areas, like either it is disposed of or incineration happens. So everywhere the hazard assessment will be there of substances. There is another important aspect of this REACH regulation is to reduce the number of tests on animals. As I already told you that different restrictions are there from the buyer's end. Interestingly, due to that reason, the use of silk substances or silk material, silk yarn, silk fiber, silk fabric, those have been banned by H&M, a big client, a big business tycoon or big business wholesalers in the world. So that is the reason, because animals are associated wherein the cocoons are getting killed in the process. That is the reason the testing of animals have been reduced in this kind of REACH regulation. There were certain advantages associated with those kind of animals testing, is that if it is successful, it can be successful with the human being also from the health and safety point of view. Like for an example, if a particular substance is suspected that yes, this may be carcinogen, okay, how to prove it? Until and unless you are getting it tested. So it was the testing which was done on the animal, just to ascertain, yes, the effect is there on the animal and it is carcinogen. Then only the regulatory body declares, yes, it is a carcinogen and carcinogenic effect of that chemical is there. So that chemical should not be used, okay, or exported. So hazard assessment and number of tests of animals are important criteria. Interestingly, when you are talking about the business, there are certain principles are also applied to that. When you are talking about the REACH regulation, it is applied to all chemical substances. What do you mean by all chemical substances? Let us see. You see, chemicals we are using in our day-to-day life also, apart from the industrial processes wherein a lot of chemicals are used, without which you cannot create the aesthetics, without which you cannot create the functional properties of the material. So a lot of advantages are there on the application part. But in case of day-to-day life, how it is meaningful. Let us see how these chemicals or restriction of certain chemicals are really helpful under these REACH regulations. As we all know that during cleaning purpose, first let us take the cleaning of utensils. Okay, there some chemicals are used. We have to see the real effect of those chemicals under these REACH regulations. Apart from that, there are certain other chemicals or substances which are in use in our day-to-day lives. As you can see, the toilet cleaners, hazardous substances may be present there, or cleaning of the floors where hazardous materials or substances can be available. In that fashion, there are a lot of such chemicals which are used in our day-to-day lives. Those are to be restricted. Use of those chemicals or substances must be restricted if it has some harmful chemicals or harmful ingredients as per the REACH regulation. So that's why REACH principle also is applied to those chemicals which are in use in day-to-day lives. It is not the end to it. Students, can you recognize what these colors and what for it is used now? REACH regulation, when you are talking, we talk about the paints. What type of paints are used in our household purpose? Articles such as clothing, furniture, electrical appliance, everywhere this regulation is applied. It is not only for textile and apparel applications, but also various home furnishing materials or hardline goods, electrical appliance. Okay, so there it is also connected. So paints also one of them, and then furniture and electrical appliance also are equally responsible to adhere to the norms of REACH regulation. Now students, what is the impact? Let us see now the impact of such chemicals. The regulation, that is the REACH regulation, this has an impact on most companies across the European Union. That's why it is very important, because any type of goods which are coming to EU or any kind of goods which are produced in EU, those regulations are applied to it in the EU. What are such regulations? Let us see now different annexer in which the REACH regulation is really meaningful. As we can see, the annexer 17 of REACH regulation, it is very important. Students, can you imagine why? Because it restricts certain hazardous substances. When we are talking about hazardous substances, we talk about various hazards associated with the chemicals. Students, can you identify what are those hazards when you are talking about the hazardous substances? What type of hazard it is? These are all due to chemical hazards. And we know very well that when the chemical hazards come, so flammability of the particular chemical will come. Now, odor of that chemical will come. Lot of effect on our skin or the body will come. Those all materials together impose the restriction on certain chemicals or their mixtures. And this regulation, when it is applied, then the articles which are available in the market, that must be evaluated for. And if it really complies with REACH regulation, then it will be used as a marketing tool also. That particular article can be easily marketed in different parts of the world. Why? Because the material what has been produced, that passes all the requirement standards of these REACH regulations. It is safe in use. There is no harm of using this material in different purposes. It has no harm to the animals. It has no harm to the environment. So for all that reason, the restriction is very, very important, and the articles which will pass those kind of restrictions or the tests which are associated with that REACH regulations, those will be really marketed well. You can fetch lot of good business due to this. Now students, chemical hazards, as I already told you, there are various types of chemical hazards which can be symbolically represented. Okay. One is the respiratory trouble may come, okay, which is a really dangerous material. Lot of accidents may happen due to this. Okay. So similarly, there are various classes of hazards available in chemical industry. Students, there are also another annexure, that is the annexure 14. This step is the last step in the process of prioritization. That means you are giving some sort of priority to certain chemicals. So that is the last step. And in this annexure, very important materials are included. SVHC, substances of very high concern, high risk for human health or the environment, those are there in this list, annexure 14. That's why this is the last step wherein lot of priority in the process is been given. So prioritization is an important process in annexure 14. You have to give the priority to the chemicals, okay, and those chemicals which pose the risk in the human health or environment, those should be discarded, should not be used at all. So that is the prioritization process in annexure 14. As I already told, SVHC, that is substances of very high concern. What do you mean by that? Now, substances of very high concern, when we talk about, it talks about the substances of very high concern. Now, what is the concern? There are a lot of concerns are available wherein this SVHC is applicable. It is a great concern because European Union, this chemical substances, if it is there in the material, they cannot be accepted in the European Union and under the REACH regulations. So SVHC, that's why is very important, and ECHA, that European Chemical Agency, I already told you that it has updated the SVHC candidate list to certain numbers. It started with the 4 or 5 numbers. Now it is around 219 numbers. And we call this kind of substances as a candidate. That's why SVHC harmful chemicals which are there in the particular list is also called SVHC candidate list. And those chemicals or substances which are there in that list, that should be included in the priority, okay, under the REACH regulation. So restriction of chemicals, when you are talking, listing of a substance is very important in SVHC by the European Chemical Agency (ECHA) and is the first step in the procedure SVHC. When the chemical comes into SVHC list, so a lot of procedures are there. For authorization or restriction of use of a chemical, REACH is used. So it gives restriction of the chemicals and also authorization of use of a chemical. So that is the meaning of SVHC. Now first list of SVHC was published on 28th October 2008. Recent updates up to 16 January 2020, 205 SVHC. This was the proposed one. Proposal was there about those SVHCs. Now students, a question comes, when a substance is coming under these REACH regulations, under this SVHC candidate list. So what are those criteria by which it is determined? It is not like that government wants that to impose, or a factory wants to impose certain restriction of chemicals. It is not like that. It is a different regulation altogether which everybody should follow. Now, what are the important elements of such kind of chemical substances or chemicals? And under which characterization this comes under this SVHC candidate list? Let us see. It must be carcinogenic. It must be mutagenic. And number 3, it is toxic for reproduction. So for all these reasons, the substances of very high concern are very important, and one has to decide based on these 3 criteria. Now a substance may be proposed as an SVHC when it meets one or more of the following criteria. As we already discussed that what are the criteria involved in these regulations. Pollution and bioaccumulation is very, very important in this aspect. Now SVHC, those substances, it is persistent, it is bioaccumulative and toxic, and we normally call it as PBT substances. P normally takes from this persistency, whereas the B stands for bioaccumulative, and T definitely talks for toxicity. So pollution and bioaccumulation is very important in this case. There is another category in this REACH regulation of restriction of certain chemicals or substances which are very persistent in nature and very bioaccumulative, VP, VB, small b's. So these are the different areas of concern in the REACH regulations. So REACH substances which is actually authorized, it must be persistent, bioaccumulative and toxic. Then only these REACH regulations can be applied to it. So pollution and bioaccumulation is very, very important here. Students, can you recognize what is this? This is nothing but different substances, and a candidate list has been prepared by taking the substances of very high concern. European Chemical Agency, they are now considering imposing a requirement for authorization for some or all uses. So some criteria for authorization are important. Now students, let us see what is this. The list what I am talking is referred to as the candidate list under this REACH regulation, SVHC list, because all substances placed on it are the candidates for inclusion in Annexure 4 of REACH regulation. Now when we are talking about such events, we can easily say that in this Annexure 14 of REACH contains the harmful and regulatory banned substances, and it is included in this Annexure 4 of REACH regulations. So this is the different structure of the compounds. You should taste it, and before using we should really see the hazard identification of those chemicals. Now let us see, students, the different terminologies which are used in this particular annexure, that is Annexure 14, wherein there are two different dates have been given. Students, what are those dates? One is latest application date and another one is sunset date. What do we mean by these two dates? Now, if we see that when you are talking about a sunset date, what do you mean by that? The meaning is that this is a particular date after which the substance cannot be used or imported into the EU without authorization from the ICA. So if ICA is there and authorize any chemicals, there is a timeline for it. So we must maintain that timeline. So that timeline we express it in certain words. So REACH Annexure 14, when it has been updated, there are certain substances which are given the sunset dates. For an example, now last application date by which any applications for use must be submitted to the European Chemical Agency. Now, when you are talking about the European Union, when you are talking about the REACH regulation, when you are talking about different annexure, and also when you are talking about the SVHC, the priority is there, priority of chemicals. So a proper list of substances of very high concern is required, and that list talks about the toxicity, the harmful effect both for the environment and the human body are there, and create a cause of concern for the human being. Now, as per the latest assessment of different chemicals or substances which are in use in the market or people are using it in day-to-day life, there is a list of 219 substances which ICA has authorized or updated. So, can't you stop this, or whether this is the end to it? Now, 219 substances which are there now in the candidate list, it is not all, because I told in several times to you students that this any kind of list which are associated with the chemicals, they are coming under the dynamic list. So, it is not that there is an end to it. There is in fact no end of this candidate list. Every day there is innovation. Innovation takes place in different engineering disciplines, and while doing so, one must concern about the use of chemicals. So, those chemicals are under SVHC and must be tested before use in the product. So, at present 219 such substances are there which are really meaningful, and in future it may increase also. So, that is all about the REACH regulation. Now, students, let us see now another important standards, that is called CPS standard. What do you mean by CPS? CPS is nothing but Children Protection Standards. How the children will be protected, and what are those items wherein the protection is required? Kids wear is one of them, where the safety measures are to be taken. There is a particular commission in US who are looking after this all children's protections. They are called as Consumer Product Safety Commission or CPSC. That is for US, but what about for Europe? Yes, for Europe also there is some children protection standards are there. European Standardization Committee like CEN talks about that. Kids wear safety. Now, students, can you recognize what is this figure tells? When you are talking about different harmful chemicals and their use and all these things, we have seen that different parameters are associated. In children's protection standard also, it is definite that some of the parameters which are really helpful to recognize in the children's garment as restricted chemicals or priority chemicals like this, and so their restrictions are there. That is the chemical part of it. Now, there are also the mechanical aspects of product safety. One of them is the small parts. Small parts of different toys are shown here. Now, how it should be measured? Okay, that also is one of the questions. So this is one of the arrangement by which this kind of small parts are getting tested. There are various test methods which are available for this, like sharp edges. Sharp edges as such may not be there in the garment or the toys, but during normal use, if a toy breaks, then it creates a sharp edge. And it is a really harmful material, because sharp edges, when it is there, it can lead to different accidents in the atmosphere. Presence of this is really posing danger to the human health and also to the environmental aspects. Sharp edges can be tested, as one of the equipments are already there. So they are doing this testing for the sharp ends. And those sharp ends can be created by breaking certain buttons, certain toys, all these things. Sharp edges can be formed. And these can be tested also. So one of the instrument, you can see that in this instrument that there is some standard light is there. So it will indicate if there is a sharp point in the garment. What else apart from the sharp points which can be evaluated in this fashion? There are sharp edges are also there, apart from the small parts. So torque and tensions are very high priority in these small parts. How much torque it can come out, how much tension should be there on the material. So those parameters are to be considered. Now parameters which are also considered for flammability, that also you have to look into. Children's sleepwear, as already we have mentioned, that more than 12 months of age and must be made from the flame retardant fabric or snug fitting apparel. So that is the regulation in the flammability field. And when you are talking about the flame resistant clothing, which are really designed to stop the burning characteristics, so that is the way the flame resistance property is there in the clothing. Students, can you recognize what are the parameters to be considered here? The pH, which play an important role to our different harmful substances or the processes or products. pH is very important. Next important thing of this kind of activity is that formaldehyde. pH, as we all know, that different pH is really applicable for different creatures. For survival, the pH is very important. Now students, let us see the pH factor. If you see the pH scale, in that pH scale, one can really understand by seeing that color that which one is the neutral zone and which one in the acidic zone and which one is the most alkaline zone. So pH, that is the negative logarithm of hydrogen ion concentration, is very important parameter, that's why to judge. Now when we talk about the formaldehyde, we have really talked at length, so I am not covering here of this. We talk about little bit heavy metals like lead, then there are other items like cadmium, nickel, etc. all are there under this category. Lead content is very important, and lead can be there in the form of the painting on the surface or the original material itself. Lead can be there. So for children less than equal to 12 must have less than 0.06% of lead content. So children with less than 12 years of age, there is some restrictions. And children's garment, lot of such parameters are used where then lead can be found easily. As you can see, it is a heavy metal and it can be used in different applications in the textile and apparel industry. Students, can you recognize what are those items in the figure? So here the testing parameters which are to be considered is the drawstring. Drawstrings are very important because it leads to certain health issues or accidental part. That is the reason the neck or waist part of the drawstring should be little bit of cut short or replaced with snap, velcro or other alternative closure. It is a very important thing to remember about this different kind of regulation associated with this and how to track those is another important area. So drawstrings are one of them. So wherein little bit of shortening can happen and we can get really a good product. Under this category, not only is the drawstring but also snaps, velcros, buttons, elastics, everything can come. Now students, can you recognize what is this parameter? Construction. Construction is very important. Construction review of a garment is very important part. What do you mean by construction review? Now students, as I already told that lead is present, suppose in a garment. So there are certain guidelines are also there for this. Those are called as labeling guidelines. In those labeling guidelines, it is mentioned that size of the garment should be such that it must not lose. Then there are other aspects of this standard also. Now General Product Safety Regulations 2005 is one of the standards. Nightwear Safety Regulations 1985 is one of the standards. Let us see, students, what are the other standards available. BS 7907 2007 Code of Practice for the Design and Manufacture of Children's Clothing to Promote Mechanical Safety. A very important practice. Now let us see that different other materials which are also exposed to the different standards. In that we have to be carefully remember that these type of applicants or applicable material is also called the child care articles. So wide range of baby care products are available, but this standard, that is CPS standards, is not applicable to those child care materials. That we have to remember. For that, testing is not required. There are many other materials are also among these is the footwear is also. Toys and other items sold with the clothing, those are also exempted. So those are the exempted material which cannot be used as in testing. So different toys and different footwears. Now students, let us see, when you are talking about the standards, there is also a standards which talks about this cords and drawstring in children's clothing, how the cords and drawstrings are to be placed in the garment, and if it is not placed, what are the problems it was created. So all these case studies and inherent informations are there in the standard EN 14682 2007, which really sets the specification of drawstrings which are used in the garment, especially in the children's garment. Now, what are the problems with these cords and drawstrings? Why this is so important for us? Safety. Safety is important for the human being. BACN 14878 talks about the requirements, that is the use of products, and these can be regulated under the General Product Safety Regulation 2005. Now let us see, students, the little bit about the flammability, which already normally covered in different testing protocols, and this is also there in BACN 14878 2007, wherein the flammability requirements of pyjamas and nightwears all are there into this, which is shown here. So flammability of a garment and flammability of this different kind of items which are under the nightwear safety. What do we mean by, students, by this product safety? What do we mean by product safety? Product safety is like this, that under normal or reasonably foreseeable conditions, it gives high level of protection for consumers and minimum risk is associated with that. So those product safety review of the garment as per that is very important. So next to the product safety is that protection of people, that is one of the aim of this product safety. It can be from an event, it can be from people. One has to really protect. So protection of the people plays an important role in these product safety aspects. Product safety regulations are there, and those regulations are governed by some government agencies in different countries, and producers and distributors have for many years been obliged by these regulations. They have to abide by these regulations, and one such regulation is Consumer Product Safety Commissions under United States. So different such product regulations, products are different, regulations are different, as is shown in the figure. So CPSC, or Consumer Product Safety Commission in the United States, talks about that. Product safety regulations, where necessary, it gives the instruction to the consumers for safe operation or use of the product. Then only the safety aspects objective will be fulfilled. Product safety assessment definitely talks about products characteristics, and so also the packaging aspect needs to be considered in this product safety assessment. Now, when you are talking about such product safety, the assembly and the maintenance part also comes, that is the use and disposal. These two terminologies are involved. We should reasonably use those material. Correctly, you should use that material, keeping the different regulations in view, and also you should dispose correctly. So that is the important part of this product safety assessment, and we must really recognize that safety assessment to give the safeguard to the consumers and the environment. Risk. What about the risk associated with this? Labeling and other information provided for the consumers, which really alert the consumers how to use that material. When you are using the product especially for the children and the elderly people, this kind of risks are associated with the product. It may be in the care instruction, it may be some other instructions are also there, some in the form of label. So product safety assessments are important. Now drawstrings, we are using cords and drawstrings. Hazards are associated with that as is shown here, and these hazards are also there in certain regulation which is governed by CPAC and ASTM. And there are standard safety specification for drawstrings on children's upper outerwear. So a lot of accidents happen because of these drawstrings, as you can see as an example in the child when they are going for the playground. So if the drawstrings are there, so every chance that strangulation hazards may occur. Now small parts, when you are talked, small parts of the children's material like in the toys or different buttons, when it breaks open, it causes the choking hazards to the children, which can be tested again. So choking hazards are there, which can be tested with a small part cylinder. Then flammability regulation already we covered, because nightwear can burn rapidly, and various mandatory and voluntary measures are there, wherein there is a control of fire performance in the fabric. So we must design the fabric in such a way that it should not pose any problem in flammability regulations. So that's all, students, in this particular unit. And the lesson 3, we talked about the REACH regulations and CPSC, and we have seen that these all regulations actually are very meaningful to protect the consumers, protect their safety, protect their health, protect the environment in the form of different regulatory practices. There are regulations in US and Europe which really protects the consumers by applying certain things. It is not only for export but also in the day-to-day life, these kind of chemicals and substances can play a major role. So thank you very much, students. We will see in the next class some new topic. Thank you.